Yeah, please speak. Yourself speak. Please remove me out the way. Shalom. And it is lunchtime and we're here. Yeah, we're here. Back on the tracks. Back to the narrow path. Look, see that? That's what's happening. It seems as though the narrow path at times can get more narrow. At times, it seems like the narrow path can get more narrow. But you gotta stay on the narrow path. So it's lunchtime, and we're just gonna start calling this the Narrow Path Collection because it is very important. It's the thing that is happening, that is allowing for Yah, his Ruach, to separate the sheep from the goats. To separate the sheep from the goats by making the path more narrow. And making the other way more broad. The narrow path. The more narrow path. What is that? Broad is the way that leads to destruction. Narrow is the way. Of course, he gave the example about the rich man. That it's harder for a rich man to enter. The narrow path. And this is why the poor, the needy, the people who have so many hard struggles in this world, because it is something about going through struggle and going through suffering that is more inclined with the narrow path. Oh yeah, some of us can run on the narrow path and walk fast on it. But that ain't the point. Now what's happening, everyone, is the narrow path is getting more narrow. So buckle down. Double down on your prayers. Double down on your fasting. Double down on your repentance as soon as you sin. Double down on your forgiveness as soon as somebody wrongs you. Double down on open up your book and reading the scriptures. Double down. Double down. Go even harder. This is the last days, and the path is getting more narrow and narrow and narrow and narrow. Because look what's written. He says that if he had not shortened the time, even his very elect would be deceived. That lets you know right there that that thing is getting more narrow and more narrow and more narrow. If even the elect can be deceived. Please understand. Stand on that narrow path, because it's going to get more narrow and more narrow and more narrow. And if you're not adjusting your life to it being more narrow and more narrow and more narrow, and squeezing yourself and getting your feet in the right position, if you're not making those adjustments as the path gets more narrow by the day, you might not make it, Jack. And trust me, stand on the narrow path does involve pain. It does involve suffering. It does involve mistakes. It does. It just does. Stand on the narrow path. It's gonna get more narrow. It is getting more narrow. Double down on your prayers. Double down on your fasting. Matter of fact, live a life of fasting. Live a life of fasting. Make it your lifestyle. Make it a lifestyle. Fasting. Make separating yourself for true prayer, which is communication, not asking for much. Not asking for stuff on me. Not asking for stuff. It's communication and wanting to hear back from him, so you know the correct way to take to stay, the correct steps to take to stay on the narrow path that's getting more narrow. It's getting more narrow. It's getting more narrow. It's getting more narrow. Man. Praise you, Father. You are so good. Your grace and your mercy endures forever, and that was your faithfulness. Let your Ruach speak. Continue to show me and guide me the way that you would choose for me to take. Continue to show me my error, so the narrow path all of a sudden does become broad and I end up in a broad way. Show me the things I must continue to cut off, the things I must let go to stay on that narrow path. Because this is what happened. He says that a rich man can't enter, right, through the needle's eye, because what, he's riding on that camel and he got so much stuff on his camel that all of his stuff on the camel can't fit because he's so rich and he get all his stuff on the camel, which means the rich man got to let go of things. So this process of being on a narrow path involves letting go. So show us, Father, show me exactly what you are telling me to let go, so I don't let go of the wrong thing and try to keep the right thing. Praise you, Father. You are good. Your grace, your mercy endures. Let your Ruach speak. Speak. Hallelujah. Selah. Selah. Have a good rest of the day. Narrow Path Collection. Shalom.